News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.
And a wonderful morning to you. This is Newsline, live as always from the Newsfirst studios in Dawson Street in Colombo. And on a sort of middling day, a little bit damp out there, it's good to be back and to discuss a sort of a roundup of the current state of the country, politically, economically and otherwise. Joining me on the set this morning after some weeks away is Mr. Shamindra Ferdinando, the news editor of the Island newspaper. Very good morning to you, Mr. Shamindra Ferdinando.
Good morning to you, Faraz.
Nice
Faraz,
to see you here.
I think, Faraz, you should first of all explain your absence here. And you were out for about 2 weeks.
Ah, yes.
And all of us miss you.
Well, thank you, thank you. It's good, like you said, it's good to be back. I had to go to a local medical establishment and had a little bit of a tune-up done, you know, added a few bits here and there. And I must say that I'm deeply grateful to the medical team that looked after me. And the commitment, the passion of those who work in our medical field is absolutely astounding. I think all of them, from the patient care assistants to the consultants, everyone in between, deserves the appreciation of the public, because these medical things, they do it from the heart, and in my case it was quite literally to the heart. So it's good to be back, and thank you for having watched, and thank you for all the messages and so on that filtered through. Thank you. And of course young Mr. Haporachi has held the fort together, and someone's told me that he's retired for today. But anyway, now then, what's been going on, Shamindra? You know, I see here that Minister Arjuna Ranatunga blows the whistle on CPSTL corruption. I have incurred the wrath of some ministers for acting against corrupt officials, says Minister Arjuna Ranatunga. This is the lead item in your newspaper, The Island, this morning. What is this all about?
Actually, Minister Ranatunga yesterday accused his officials of releasing 74 bouses of petrol, diesel and kerosene at the previous price.
At the old price?
Yeah, at the old price, after the government announced its decision to increase fuel price at midnight on May 10th.
And so, what's wrong in that?
See, once the government announced its decision, they do not issue supplies.
Right.
So during that time, senior CPC officials had got together and issued 74 bouses full of.
So after the announcement and before the midnight time slot for the price increase to take effect.
Yes.
So the usual form you're saying, or the minister is saying, that the usual form is after the announcement, no issues are made until after the new price takes effect.
Yes.
But in this case, the minister is claiming that some officials got together and released 74 bouses.
So I'm sure the ministry is aware of the identity of these people, because he says that the release of fuel took place from its facility at Muthuraya Jewellery and Colonna. So the head of those established places are responsible. So he has also said that the investigation will be handed over to the FCID. So we'll see.
Right, wonderful. The FCID. That's the place where a large amount of files from the FCID were transferred to something called the National Procurement Commission. And lo and behold, nobody seems to know what's happened. And I suppose we could get our legal department to write under the RTI and find out. Perhaps that's a good thought. We'll do that this morning. Now then, the other matters in contention, of course, is the real opportunity here. President Sirisena's chief of staff was involved in that bribe taking, accepting, counting money, whatever it was. And here's an opportunity for the President to show that he's committed towards eradicating or stopping corruption as far as possible. And thus far, we have no reports, I don't know if you have, but I haven't, of any sort of influential telephone calls being made.
No, Faraz, we haven't heard.
No, so no have I. And so that's good news, isn't it?
Certainly, Faraz, but we'll see that the arrest of the President Sirisena's Chief of Staff, along with the then chairman of the State Timber Corporation, and the subsequent appointment of Aniruddha Polgampala, a former JP MP, who had been forced to resign from the JVP, right? And who subsequently worked with the UPFA, then he was with the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. In January 2018 he switched sides to President Sirisena's party. Now he was appointed chairman of the State Timber Corporation, right? And within 24 hours, because the media reported about this matter, how he was involved in some corruption issue, that he was wanted by the police, the government was forced to remove him. Now he's a former MP, a former lawmaker, who was removed from the JP in September 2008.
My question is this: how did they manage to
now, for us, the issue is how they appoint people without obtaining approval from the Parliamentary High Post Committee. That all appointments to key positions have to be approved by the Parliamentary Committee.
Including that of Chief of Staff of the President?
No, I think all key appointments. Because I think he holds, his position is similar to that of a secretary to a ministry, right? So these appointments have to be approved by the Parliament. So,
but these appointments are made at His Excellency's pleasure.
No, I don't say that. Now, somebody must have recommended
that process,
the appointment. Yes, now today we heard that Secretary to the President, Mr. Austin Fernando, he called a press conference at the Information Department today at 10.
Do you think Austin Fernando, God bless him, has got it wrong this time?
No, I don't know. I simply cannot say that. But I think Mr. Fernando should explain the circumstances under which he was appointed.
Exactly. How come no checks being done?
That's the thing.
And then this is the face of our president.
Rajit Kirti Tennakoor, who appears on serious programs regularly, he is on record as having said that they informed the government that there were allegations against Dr. Mahanam. Serious allegation when he was the secretary to the Ministry of Lands and Parliamentary Reforms, parliamentary reforms, right, and lands, that he was trying to, that he stopped this particular Indian project in a bid to obtain.
So he's had a link to it for a
long time. Yes, so that's the issue. And if you see for us, the entire country is in turmoil. Now today the doctors are on strike from 8 a.m. today. It's a 24-hour strike against Sri Lanka Singapore FTA, and they are also objecting to Sri Lanka's, the government decision to have this economic pact with India. So the doctors are on strike today. So they say if the government does not change its decision, they'll launch a continuous strike. So it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue. Even the transport sector now, day before yesterday, Honorable Sitipala Disilla, he said that they'll allow increase of bus fare hike. It's according to him it was 6.5%.
That's right.
So the private operators warned the government that they were going to strike. What happened within 24 hours? Some other minister, I think State Minister Ashok Abesingh, he intervened and he held talks with these operators and he announced 12.5%. So within 24 hours, this Jayapalana government has increased. You first increase it by 6.5, then within 24 hours, 12.5. So something terribly wrong in this country, this system.
But the flip side is that the government is listening to the people, and so they're changing their mind because the people.
Do you really think so?
I don't know. It appears that way. Because you have one rule, and then after some protests and so on, they capitulate and they go back to the other position to which they were opposed to in the first place. That's how it amounts to me. they agree 6.5%, and then within 24 hours, after they've been told that they're going to go on strike, they agree to increase it by 12.5%, another 6%. That's a whopping, that's nearly 100% increase, okay? And then they also say that, okay, well, we'll do the minimum fare. Instead of 15 rupees, we'll do it to 12. So, you know, a lot of people, so the others watching this game say, oh, well, okay, if we protest, we might get a bit more money too. And that's the whole problem. This fuel increase has caused absolute havoc, isn't it? Every single thing seems to have gone up in price.
Everything for us.
Everything's gone up. Everything. And, you know, all you have to do is take a ride in a bus or in a tuk. If you go in a tuk, and if it's a half-an-hour journey, you'll be well entertained. Because our political analysts in these tuks, they're absolutely great analysts because they're on the ground there. You know, they're ear to the ground, quite literally. And, you know, so you won't be bored.
Yeah, actually for us, about this increase in petrol and diesel prices, I must tell you, I think I blame the previous government for this situation, because the former President Rajapaksa, in 2008, when the Supreme Court intervened and directed the government to have a fuel formula, the previous government, they simply ignored it. So while we...
And it was, if I recall, it was a pretty good mechanism, because it insulated the public, the retail price, and the fluctuations in the world price affected only the taxes and the you know, that part of it, and so that the selling price was maintained within a certain band.
But the previous government simply ignored that directive. So if they carried out the Supreme Court order, I mean, more than 10 years ago for us.
That's right.
So it's up to
missed opportunities.
Certainly, I mean, it was purposely and deliberately ignored, and you know, people are suffering, and there are so many other issues now. Today, see the problems faced by the political parties, because all the major political parties are in turmoil, severe turmoil. They simply have no time to you know, address issues faced by the ordinary people.
Now, do you think the ordinary people really care, or have they noticed about this reshuffle of the cabinet and the subsequent declaration of the work schedule under each minister?
For us, it did not make any difference, I must tell you. And you know, all these cabinet reshuffles, all these new plans and development plans, all, you know, the government has to take certain actions only because both the UMP and the SLAP suffered huge electoral defeats at February 10th local government polls. Massive defeats. So since then they are trying to, you know, recover. They talked about cabinet reshuffles. There was I think 2 or 3 previously, and the last one did not make any change. Now we saw MP Vijayadas Rajapaksa, who has been very critical about the government, about this Hambantota port deal and various other matters. He simply returned to the cabinet, right? So we heard various things. You know, what they said was that the cabinet reshuffle would restore confidence among the people in the government, and things will improve. But today you will see that they are fighting over every issue. Now see, the statement made by the Honorable Prime Minister at the UMP May Day event on May 6th, he declared that the government would bring the Samurdhi Bank under central bank. So he was contradicted by Minister Harrison. He said no such thing. The central bank also contradicted the Prime Minister.
This is the whole problem. There's so many contradictions. While I was away, I noticed that the Prime Minister, there was some clip, and I noticed it, and the Prime Minister said, he was speaking in Sinhalese, and he said, you know, so there was nothing else to do, so to make the roads, we call tenders. That's it, we call tenders. That's complete lie.
You are accusing the Prime Minister of lying?
Yes, I am actually. I am. The Prime Minister makes comments that lead. There's no clarity. He said he called tenders. So if we examine that little bit, then yes, he called a tender. But what he didn't say is that when that first tender, talking about the Central Expressway, I know this story inside out by now, and I'm sure the general public know it too. When he called it, and when that first company, Taise, which was the only qualifying bidder in terms of experience, as required by our RDA, who spelt out the experience required. Now, when they found that there was only one qualifying bidder, this qualifying bidder, for all its size and controversy in Japan itself, Taisei Corporation, they didn't include the bid bond. Now, in the world of bonds and in the world of tenders, that's a serious deviation. It's a major deviation. Enough to cancel the whole blessed thing, and you must recall it. Can the Prime Minister show us evidence that he recalled this tender in keeping with all national tender procurement guidelines? That's the whole thing. We need to fact check all these things that our politicians say, irrespective of whether he's a state minister or the Prime Minister. When they come and shoot from the hip, as journalists, as the media, we have an obligation, a duty by the people to fact check that. Because, you know, it's like the Prime Minister. Do you remember that he maintained that there was no wrongdoing, that it was only a change when he was talking about the bonds?
Yes. He
maintained that. And then very subtly they changed it to there is no evidence of. Right. Thank goodness for the Presidential Commission of Inquiry.
Appointed in January 2017.
Exactly.
A bit too late.
A little bit too late. Yes. But there it was for everyone to read. It says there that Arjuna Mahendran, the governor of the central bank, acted mala fide in the interests of perpetual treasuries, which just so happened to have links to his son-in-law.
Yeah.
Now, if we took it on the face value, and didn't do any fact-checking, it would be all hunky-dory. Mine would probably be esconded in the central bank to this day.
Faraz, I think thanks to the senior official who was present on that occasion, Mrs.
Seniviratna, yeah, Deepa
Seniviratna, we knew, the people of this country knew that a massive robbery took place on February 27, 2015,
yeah.
Right? The political system did not do anything to stop it. They allowed the first robbery to carry on. And
You're
the
right.
second one.
So that's departure from process. What he could have just stopped it.
For us, it's not only the Prime Minister, it's the system.
Yes.
It's the system that allows the members of Parliament, the lawmakers to do anything they want to. Right? Simply anything. That, you know, there is Supreme Court case filed by Attorney at Law Nagananda Kodito.
Yes.
He has accused the Bribery Commission of failing to take action against members of Parliament. He has said the members of Parliament has committed a fraud amounting to 7 billion rupees in respect of duty-free permits. 7 billion rupees, and you know, they are not inquiring into that.
And also, if you remember, Mr. Mahendran's passport was put on hold by the Bribery Commission after, I think,
after the first bond scam? Or?
Yes, somebody complained, and they then had a travel restriction on Mr. Mahendran. I'd be very interested to know on what basis that travel restriction was lifted. Nobody's talking about it. When you ask them, the cabinet spokesperson, Dr. Rajat Senaratne, he gets rather piqued. And he says, why are you asking about Mahendran? What about Udayanga Weeratunga? What about Jalia Wickremesuriya. Yeah, well, yes, we know all that, but why doesn't the minister answer the real question? And the real question is, and perhaps it's our fault as the media for not posing it so directly, but the real question is, why doesn't the minister address the issue that officials from the Attorney General's Department, officials from the police department, from the police force, have spent our money and gone abroad in the full knowledge that there is no treaty that has been ratified by the Sri Lanka Parliament to have anybody extradited from the UAE. And there's no good turning up in the UAE, scratching your back and you're off your head and saying, oh, please, Sheikh, whatever, would you kindly release this man? Because he's been ever so bad, and you know, he's wanted in this MIG transaction. The MIG transaction, the value, the extra value you're talking about is around $7 million. The UAE don't care about that.
But I must tell you, for us, that you cannot compare this MIG transaction with the central bank bond scam.
No, you can't. This is my point.
Because the way some of these people, talk about the MIG scam for us, they're talking as if that we did not use MIGs. The MIGs were here. The MIGs were used from 2006 to 2009.
Agreed.
And the MIGs squadron based at Kotonaga played a critical role.
Yes, but it's absolutely essential for Udanga Weeratunga to be brought back here. Because
definitely.
Now
he should come back.
Ukraine government is now saying, listen, chaps, we don't have an agreement with you. And this agreement that we all believe
that's because there's chaos in Ukraine too because of the change of government. It's like the Yahapan administration. Because for us, Ukraine sold Sri Lanka Air Force MiGs way back in 2000. That was during President Kumartunga's time, right? We had a MiG squadron for a long time. For some reason, they are acting as if that they did not sell MiGs to Sri Lanka, or Sri Lanka did not obtain MiGs from Ukraine.
I think they're talking about this latest transaction. And they're saying that it's... So therefore, Udanga Weeratunga's got a lot to explain. But there is no need and no good the cabinet spokesperson getting annoyed about it.
And nobody is talking about the other countries refusing to sell this equipment to Sri Lanka during that time, right? So it was a tough time. And so... a lot of things happening in this country, country in turmoil.
Yes, country in turmoil. No discussion currently is...
actually, for us, that's now talking about who is going to be the next presidential candidate. That's huge.
What about the 16? The Gang of 16?
The Gang of 16, I think...
What are they doing?
They're trying to reach some sort of agreement with President Rajapaksa's group, I mean the joint opposition, to operate as a separate entity in the JO. I don't think the JO leaders will agree to that. Yes.
So that's the current status of the Gang of 16.
Yes.
And then what is the status? What do you think will happen, the 20th Amendment? Is it going to be debated?
For us, I think the JP is behind 20th Amendment, and the JP wants to abolish the executive presidency. The JVP, you know, the whole thing is the JVP wants to elect president through the parliament.
Right.
The JP wants members of parliament to elect the next president. Right? But
I don't think that's... what do you think? Do you think it's a good idea?
I think if they want to abolish it, there's no need for this position, because we are spending millions of rupees on that office, right? So if they feel there's no point in having that position, just scrap it. But
I think it's a decision that people must make.
No, I mean, if the people must, if there's a people have a choice, then now already the UMP has declared, Honorable Mangala Samarvila in Matara, about couple of days back, he declared that Mr. Wickremesinghe will be the UNP candidate, right? So, President Sirisena's party too has declared, and President himself has said that he will not retire in 2020. So that's an indication he may contest. And from the JO side, the former Secretary of Defense Gotabaya Rajapaksa has indicated very openly that if his brother, the former president, is willing, is ready to accept him as the presidential candidate, that he will contest. So last Sunday, he had this event at Shangri-La, and then So he made this, indication, and that he was ready. So it's up to the former president. But I think the major political parties.
But the people, let's go swiftly over to Malaysia. The people of Malaysia, you can imagine the level of frustration. They went back to an old leader. They hankered after the good times, right? So they went back to this leader, himself not without controversy,
Yes.
who left the party that the Najib Razak was from, because he didn't want to be part of a party that appeared to support corruption. That's what he said at the time. He then joined a political rival who was one time his protege, Anwar Ibrahim and so on, and they had a sensational victory. Dr. Mahathir Mohamad is 92 years old. The Malaysian people did the right thing, and the peaceful transition of power vindicated the Malaysian people's right thing that they did by voting out somebody who was so openly corrupt and so accused by none other than the U.S. Department of Justice, who have also secured sequestered some of those funds, or the 1MDB funds, and they are holding it for the people of Malaysia. But the main point here is that the people of Malaysia went back. They hankered after the past. Do you think the people of Sri Lanka will go that route?
For us, I think serious allegations against all political parties in this country. So, I don't know. I don't think you can compare the situation here with that of Malaysia, because if you go
but in Malaysia, they did a Faraz Mustafa.
What do you mean by that?
Oh, goodness me. They changed all the little constituencies. They changed it. The number of seats representing this, that and the other. And Najib Razak was pleasantly surprised when areas which he'd fixed obviously in the favor of his party, where the Malay vote was, and he gave them more seats, right? And he was so pleasantly surprised because all the areas that he thought he was going to win, turned out they voted against him. It completely backfired. So I called it.
You cannot compare,
rather
because Farah, you cannot compare, because Faraz Mustafa and the government, by putting off the postponing the local government elections, they got together.
I use the example loosely,
yes,
because Mr. Mustafa will now fly off the handle and get in touch with us. But I use it loosely. When I say that in Malaysia, Najib Razak did a Faraz Mustafa, what I mean is they played around with these little things. So what was that word that Faraz was? Delimitation. The whole world, everybody in Sri Lanka knew this thing, delimitation. And so he did what I call, Najib Razak did a Faraz Mustafa.
Yeah.
And it failed. So even though he tried to fix all these areas where the Malay vote was big, he gave them even more seats in that area. And where he thought the opposition was going to be winning, even though there were so many votes there, he only had one.
Yeah.
So there you are. That's the world, the way we see it from Newsline. The Pope has sold his Lamborghini for 4 times the asking price, or for what it's worth,
but the issue
and donated
is,
the money.
But the issue is, why did he have a Lamborghini in the first place?
It was gifted to him.
He should have refused it for us.
Do you think so?
Yeah, certainly.
Well, I think he's done very well with the money, because some of it, it's all gone to charity. So good on the Pope. But now the thing is, he's autographed the bonnet. I'm wondering whether they'll wash the car now, or whether it's a permanent marker. We'll find out. We don't need an RTI, we'll write to the Pope and ask him.
Sure.
All right then. Shamindra Ferdinando, editor, the news editor of the Island newspaper. Thank you very much for being on Newsline. It's been a great pleasure having you on here. And that's the way it was on Thursday, the 17th of May, 2018. Take care and God bless.
News First, Newsline with Faraz Shauketaly.